the first time I did that, I was down there. Nobody was there. I thought nobody's going to show up. I've created this event. Nobody's going to come. And one of the kids from the neighborhood came up, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, my church is gonna, we're gonna cook some hot dogs and we're gonna have a little church service down here and share the gospel." And he's like, "Somebody got shot here last week, right?" And I was like, "No, I did not know that. But thank you for telling me that," right? And so he kind of rides on, it's a kid on a bike, right? He kind of rides on, and I'm like, "Lord, I do not know what I've gotten myself into, and I don't know what's going to happen." And I really thought, I was like, nobody's going to show up. And about 5 minutes later, like all these vehicles started coming in, and people started getting out, and we set up, and we had a great night. It was wonderful. We handed out hot dogs and talked about Jesus and loved on people.
You got something like a sandwich on your mouth.
Pizza. You got the whole sandwich.
Got a whole sandwich.
You want to bite?
This is the sandwich eating dude I've ever seen.
Nothing wrong with a sandwich, right?
Sandwich is great.
Okay, well, we're back with Chief, Cap, and Chap. This is episode 7, and today we have Pastor Kenny King, and Pastor William Marshall, and we are going to talk about the community center that they're building. But first of all, thank you guys for watching and catching our episodes, and we appreciate that. Email us. Email us at chief.cap.chap@gmail.com, and tell us what you think. We've gotten a few of those. I'd love to get more. Tell us your ideas, who you wanted us to interview, and talk about Sikeston and the people serving our community. So that's what we do here. But let's get into this. So, John, you got anything to say?
Well, I've known Kenny. He's been one of our chaplains, since you started that program. This first time I've got to meet this gentleman here, so I'm kind of interested to learn. Yeah. I know a little bit about Kenny, but I'm kind of interested to learn about you. And of course, you've talked about Kenny and
William.
Yeah. And I don't know him well enough. I think this is the first time I met you, so I forgot your name, William.
Yeah, that's okay.
You say I started that. I didn't really. I was just like, "Hey guys, y'all want to do something
well,
here?"
You facilitated.
And they said, "Sure, yeah,
Yes.
let's go." And they did it all, So, but it worked out great. But William, you want to tell us about your story or whatever?
Sure. I don't know how far back you want to go
I
and how
don't
long you
mind.
want me to talk, but I grew up in Tennessee and went to university and seminary, and the Lord called me to pastor here about 20 years ago. And so I've been in Sikeston for 20 years, which is crazy. And was the pastor of Trinity Baptist Church, which was out on the highway.
Yeah.
And then met Kenny probably
2017.
Yeah, 2017, and we kind of struck up a friendship and started having meals together and hanging out together and talking about church ministry together. And the Lord kind of led us to start talking about what would it look like if we actually did ministry together and merged our churches and joined our churches. And so we did that and came together and merged the churches in 2019.
Well, so you had Trinity Baptist, which is predominantly white church.
That's right.
Kenny, you had
Smith Chapel
Methodist United
Methodist Church. Yes.
Yeah, so it was a predominantly black church.
Yes.
And y'all merged together, and I remember this because I was just like, wow, y'all made Time Magazine for that.
That's true.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah,
Got a blurb in there.
Yeah.
It was great.
Had your pictures?
Yeah, nice pictures.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
It
was, yeah, and it was out of the blue, right? It just kind of reached out to us and said, "Hey, we'd like to do a feature on this," and it was kind of in one of those. I forgot exactly what the name of the article was, but it was like
100
influencer,
people
100 people who are making changes or doing something like that.
Right.
And so obviously, from their perspective, they were just interested in the black-white issue, right? That a black pastor and a white pastor would come together, and so they thought that was pretty fascinating.
What was that like? I mean, that's because I've been going to church off and on, my whole life, but predominantly white churches, and there's like obviously an obvious racial, I don't want to say divide, but it's pretty noticeable. I've been to black churches, and it's something you notice. So how did that work? Sounds like it worked good.
Yeah, I think so. We obviously there were differences,
right?
But the differences don't always have to be problems. Sometimes you just have to work together and figure out, okay, well, how are we going to do this and how are we going to do that? And Kenny and I, Kenny's joke was always that his church was the whitest black church in town.
Yes.
And so I was I didn't exactly know what he meant by that, but I did come to find out what he meant. Obviously, music was a big challenge because music is different culturally, and so we had to kind of work through that. And one of the fun things that we did, I said, okay, Kenny, you write 25 songs, like 25 songs that you really love that you think would be that your people love, that your church loves, and I'll write down 25 songs, and we'll kind of put those together and just kind of see what it looked like. And there was so much overlap in the two groups that I was like, yeah, this might work. we might be able to make this happen. And so I really think we would both say this, and not to over spiritualize it, but I think the Lord was working on both churches in different ways to allow for the merge, maybe even in ways we had no idea that was happening. And so I think that was one of the reasons why it worked.
And so now that the merged church is called Grace Bible Fellowship.
That's correct.
Okay, which I've been to, and it was a great church. I've been back when y'all had it out at the property where Trinity was, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good.
Great.
Good. It's probably when Kenny was preaching, right?
I was preaching.
That's right. See how that went?
I'll
See how that
say,
goes.
I remember it.
You guys both do a good job with that. I'm not just saying
Thanks,
that.
brother.
I mean, but y'all do. And actually, when you were at Trinity, I told this story already, but we had Feast Week there.
Yes,
I think
right.
that's the first time I met you, maybe.
Yes.
And first time I met Jason Davis, because I always joke when he got up there with the tattoos on his arm, because I couldn't see what they were, and I was like, "Oh boy,
That's right. What have I gotten?
where is this going?"
What have I gotten myself into?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just visiting. I'm like, "Uh oh," you know.
Right. Yes.
No, but
That's
he
fun.
did a good job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always.
Well, so you got Grace Bible Fellowship, and y'all had the Trinity property there, which you have sold,
Yes.
and you bought the property. Tell me how we're kind of going to this route of the community center. So,
Well, when we merged, what we realized is that both churches had a heart for the west end of Sikeston. And what we did when we merged is we met at Trinity's property, which was the furthest you could probably get in Sikeston from the west end of Sikeston. And so we thought of ways in which we could still use the Smith Chapel building to serve in the community. We did some things during COVID there, like food handouts, and we partnered with the Y to pack food and hand it out as well. But we realized that we weren't going to be able to do very much with that building because it's a smaller building. It's kind of aged. And when we first merged, just to backtrack a little bit, we went out and did surveys in the community to ask people, what would you like to see in the community? And probably to a person, it was, we need something for kids to do in the community. And we knew that would be hard in that Smith Chapel building. And so we kind of put that on the back burner, though. It wasn't immediately like we need a community center. It was sort of, how can we do something for kids in the community? So we do something called Grace Club on Wednesday nights that we started at the Smith Chapel building. But when COVID hit, we were riding around in the neighborhood, right? And we see this property that's for sale, and we start to think this property would be amazing to build something on. And so we went to the church and said, we have this extra property that was behind the Trinity building. We could sell that. We weren't using it for anything. We could sell that and use that money to purchase the property that we're building the community center on now. And then we eventually got to the point where we just said, okay, we're going to have to do something. Like, we're going to have to sacrifice in a way. And so we went to the church and said, what would it look like for us to sell this building in order to have a nice chunk to be able to start on this project that we dreamed of building a community center, a place that's not necessarily for us just as a church, because most church buildings stay empty for the majority of the week, except for, the hour or so we use it for different services. So what would it look like? And the church overwhelmingly voted in favor of selling the building. The great God's providence in that was we didn't even get the building technically listed before we had somebody who was willing to give the asking price for it. And I mean, William knows better than I, but for many years they looked to, what it would look like to sell the building. They didn't think they would get what it was worth, and so they held back on it. But in God's providence, we got actually more than what it appraised for, right? And so we decided, okay, well, now we got to find somewhere to meet. And so we went back to Smith Chapel's old building, and we are meeting there now. But we had the money from the sale of the building, and then we applied for the ARPA grant through the government. And again, we don't know what we're doing in regards to grant writing at all. And we connected with someone we were doing the food program with through the Y. And she had some experience, and she wrote the grant. We had no idea we were going to get this grant at all. But again, just God's providence, we received the ARPA grant. So now we had the money from the sale of the building and a matching funds from the ARPA grant, and that gave us the resources to begin building and pretty much complete phase 1, which is the gym area of Grace Community Center.
So now you're from Tennessee.
Yes.
And you're originally from Sikeston.
Born and raised, yes.
Now you moved off a little bit, but you come back.
Came back.
Glad you came back.
Yes, glad to be here.
Yes.
For the most part.
So where did the idea of the community center, originate from? I'm trying to get back toward the Lincoln building and stuff like that, because I know we've talked about that.
Right.
You've talked in great detail about that.
Man, I was, being raised in the community, I had, you take stuff for granted when you're in that period of time, right? And so I just took for granted that you had places to go where you could have fun and be safe and not worry about different elements being around, and just have adults who can actually invest into your life and encourage you and whatnot. So I always had that when I was being raised on the west end of town. And so I just took it for granted that something like that would always be present. But then, coming back while I was, living in St. Louis or living in Columbia, just realizing that Lincoln had came into disrepair, and there was nothing that was taking its place. And so it started to be where it was a sign of hope for me when I used to being raised up. It was a sign of hope, sign of a refuge in a sense. When I started to come back, it was a sign of hopelessness. And you can see that hopelessness not just be displayed in that building, but also displayed in the people, because they just didn't have anything. It didn't seem like they had a place where they could be, a place where people were intentionally investing in their lives. And so it just felt like we were missing a generation of kids who were being influenced by just negative elements, bad elements that would get them.
You got to keep them occupied.
You got to keep them occupied, right? And occupied doesn't look like always being on devices or playing a game. It looks like you got to have people who've already been there investing in their lives, and let them know, hey, we love you. We want to see the best for you. Yeah, there are going to be people investing in your life one way or the other, for good or for bad. And we wanted to be intentional. I know there were people intentional in my life, like Homer Jackson and the Howard twins and people like that, who were just consistently in the neighborhood, just being intentional about pouring into the kids to redirect them from the elements who did not want to see them to flourish, or who were trying to get them down a path that was going to lead to some serious trouble.
And so the Lincoln School had activities and stuff like that was going on quite a bit.
Always. I mean, I played basketball there. We had talent shows. We had, there were parties there. There were all different types of just even different things you could learn at Lincoln School. And even a generation before me, they said they had different classes there where even after, they integrated to schools, they still had different classes there where people could just have some type of job training or life training.
So when did that stop there? Do you know what
I don't know when it stopped, but I can say that when I was in St. Louis, which would have been about 2007 through 2015, I would come home in 2007 and say, what's going on with this building?
Right.
Like nothing's going on in the building.
Yeah.
And so it seemed like it was around, it had to be before then, because I don't think anybody was
early
using
2000s, like 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I remember when
it seems like I remember some activities there, and I just wasn't sure if I was just imagining that, because I started in '98, and I think it was going on then,
Right.
'99.
I know at one point Mission Missouri was using it, just the kitchen portion of it to help feed people, but it seemed like it had started to decline.
Yeah,
I would say early 2000s.
I think it's probably a good indication that I don't remember it. That means working as an officer, we didn't have problems there.
Right.
So it was a positive thing. So my attention was elsewhere, obviously, I guess, but it's probably why I don't remember.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yes.
Right.
But yeah, that's really good. So y'all, this property that you acquired is right next to Lincoln Park.
Yes.
And Compress Road and what road is
Petty.
that there? Petty and Compress right there. So y'all have actually phase one. So you got 2 phases.
Two
going in
phases.
this?
That's right.
Yeah. So the first phase includes the gym area and has a stage, and so there's quite a bit we can do with that. And a lot of people, when we were doing the surveys, were saying that we needed some sort of sports programming for the kids because they couldn't either afford like being involved in the school programming or transportation. Reliable transportation was the issue, and so we wanted to make sure that was one aspect of getting people something to do, is that make sure that kids can have a way to play, because sports, it really does can encompass a lot of life.
And that's a real problem. I mean, if you're in sports or your kids are in sports, you probably realize that some of the kids at high school who have a driver's license will go around and pick people up, drop them off for practice. I mean, because transportation is just a need that in rural communities that, we have Scott County Transit. I'm on that board, and we're trying to get that expanded, but it's hard to get funded because I think if you have a car, you don't realize how big of a need that is. If you don't, you realize it pretty strongly.
Yes, you do.
So, and if, trying to get from one end of town all the way over to the other end of town, I mean, or the YMCA is pretty good distance away.
Right.
So there's activities, but if you can't get to them, what good is that?
Right.
Yeah, especially if if you're younger.
Yes.
If I live a block or two from the community center, I'm more, as a parent, willing to let you walk over there versus all the way to Main and Malone or to over to the high school.
We would get in trouble for riding our bikes that far, so you can't ride your bike there either.
It's like, where'd you go?
Where did you go? Right? Like, no. Yeah, you get caught. It seemed like every time you rode your bike past the point they told you to go, your parents would catch you. Like they would never catch you. Somebody was always catching you when you went that far. So you couldn't go from the West End all the way to even where the Y is without getting caught.
It's funny how that works. I remember being young, and you didn't have cell phones. You didn't have, but if you stayed out too late, and Dad might roll into town, and somehow, I mean, we lived out in the country. Like, we traveled levee roads and everything else, and somehow that dude would find us.
Yes.
And I don't really know how he did that,
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. It's something else. But,
circling back, one thing I think is really important for us is that, we realized, we're not a huge church. It's not like we have, hundreds members. But there's a lot of really good stuff happening in the city, a lot of good resources, a lot of good ministries, a lot of good different things. But that transportation issue was a big deal. There wasn't a lot of those things that were necessarily meeting, down in the West End. And we know the Lincoln Extension is trying to, house some of that and allow people to use their facility for that. And we just thought, man, what if, one of the things we do is just build a space where some of those ministries could, or organizations or whatever, could actually come and do something in the neighborhood where people could walk to it versus having to get transportation and drive or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's right. This I know Sikeston in general has been bouncing around that idea about a community center. Minor has the Minor Convention Center that a lot of people use from time to time, but again, it's a ways out there, So if you partner with schools, like I know we're trying to plan a seminar this fall with Three Rivers, and that's a great facility. Lincoln Extension, they hold a lot of meetings. We've had a lot of community meetings there.
Yes.
NAACP meets there. They have their, and I want to get Brenda in here if she'll do it. I mean, because they do a lot of good stuff there. They really do.
Yes.
But that's there's limitations. I mean, they're trying to run their extension, the program there for and everything, and it's just not necessarily open to everybody. You got to organize it and all that stuff. So I think that is a good need. So when does phase 2 actually kick in for that? Is that yet to be determined, or?
Well, we're fundraising at this point. We need about $200,000 to basically lay the foundation to kind of get started on phase 2, and so that's what we're working at. Working towards now is to be able to raise that amount, and then just work on it from there. I mean, our hope would be is that it's not long at all, right? That we can begin, but obviously we'll have to see how the Lord provides.
Okay. So is that potential more grant applications for that, maybe? Or?
Yep, that's part of that.
Okay.
We've actually have somebody helping us with some grant writing. We have a meeting tomorrow actually to work with her on some of that, and so we just want to look at what different resources are out there and what people who are possibly willing to support, and basically explore all the avenues. So yes, grant writing is part of that.
What has the community said so far about the project? Have you got some feedback already?
Yeah, I think people are really excited. I mean, obviously people want to come in and play some basketball, which is great.
Yes.
We want that, right? And so that's an easy win, right? Just come in and let's play some ball. And so even the other day we're at Miss Rita's, her last day of school giveaway,
right?
Which is down on Alabama Street, and just talking with her and with other people, they're asking us, when's it going to be done? When's it going to be open? When can we start using it? So I think there's some real excitement about
because the weather was kind of playing with that
it was a little
bit.
iffy. Yeah, it made it a little iffy.
Right. She moved the time up a little, to get that done. So is this obviously you have an interest in Sikeston's youth, right? I mean, that's the goal of this, but you're also pastors. So is this a dual purpose type of? I mean, you're trying to mentor, or are you trying to reach? Are you trying to spread the word while you're doing this? I mean, is that?
Well, we want to just let people know that Christ loves them, right?
Right.
And we want to be, the vessel through which they feel that love as well.
Yeah.
And so in order for people to know that, you have to have relationships with them.
Right.
And so as we gain trust, as people know that we love them as individuals, then we can share the love of Christ with them. Grace Bible Fellowship will meet in the building at some point, but that's not the primary focus of the building. The primary focus of the building is we want kids, and not just kids, but families to know that we love them and that Christ love them as well. And that we want them to flourish in life. Like we want to meet some practical needs. We want to help them to progress in this life, but we want to, more than anything, get them ready for the life to come.
So it reminds me of the chaplain program in a way.
Yes.
Like you're trying to be present, and you're trying to really just encourage and support people, and then whatever positive comes out of that is just a bonus. I mean, it's really
Amen. It's exactly like that. I mean, you go out on the scene, people are in their roughest moments many times, and you're just there to let them know you love them, and then you can backtrack and share the gospel if they need to hear the gospel, or just be a presence with them to let them know, hey, we love you.
Yeah.
Jesus still loves you.
Yeah, because that chaplain program, it's not like you're preaching on the scene or anything like that, or a certain denomination. It's just anybody.
Anybody, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's good. Well, so did you say that the first phase is done, or is it close to being done?
It's very close. We're waiting on a couple of things. We are waiting on a wheelchair lift, and so we got to get that installed and ready and in place, and then we have to get our occupancy signed off on and then a couple of insurance questions that we're still trying to hammer out. But we're really close, so we're hoping in June, we'll be able to be open and be using it.
So are you expecting to have like certain types of programs there? I know you said basketball and maybe some other things. I'm curious, have y'all gotten that far of like, hey, we're going to do this, and this? Or?
We haven't. I mean, as far as, the program's going to start on this date, we have talked about doing some, maybe some like one-day basketball camps, or bringing, just inviting the neighborhood, hey, come in, and we'll get some coaches or some trainers to come in and do that. We also want to do some volleyball. We will be able to have some volleyball nets and do some things like that. And probably this summer, a lot of it's just going to be kind of open gym, like, hey, come shoot, play. We've had some kind of travel basketball teams and different groups kind of reach out to us and say, hey, could we use the facilities? And we're like, absolutely. Let's figure out how we need to make that work and what that needs to look like. And so this summer will be, kind of like businesses call a soft opening, where you're not necessarily doing 100% of everything you're going to do, but you're just trying to kind of feel your way forward. And so I think that'll kind of probably be this summer. But then hopefully in the fall we can really start cranking up and say, okay, when's our basketball league going to be, and when's our, even partnering with like First Baptist who does Upwards, just trying to talk with them and say, okay, how could we help you guys? What would that look like? Versus necessarily starting a brand new league, But we just want to do again. We want to figure out what are the needs, like what needs to happen, and then how can, as far as, and what I mean by that is programming, like what programming needs are out there, whether it's basketball or volleyball or something like that. Or it's maybe even just practice space, or it's a place to come and walk, or a place to come. Kenny's a huge pickleball player, so we're going to try to get him some. That's a joke. Sorry, that's a joke.
Yes, I'm learning, man. I am learning.
That's a joke between Kenny and I, right? I mean, people need
right.
People need to play pickleball
too, right?
It needs to happen,
yes.
right? It's like the most growing sport in America currently. So, but yeah, I mean, just trying to look, and just try to say, okay, what are the real needs? Like, I think the real temptation is to say, here's what we want to do, and we're going to do it. And then whoever shows up, which is fine. I mean, you can do it that way. But I think our heart is more, what is the, all of this kind of came from that survey where we were saying, like, we could build a church building, or we could build a whole lot of different things. What does the community think we need to build? And that answer of, well, we just need something to do for the kids, and then a lot of it was sports related, and it's like, okay, well, what could that look like? What could that look like?
Right.
And that was kind of what led us down the path towards a community center. And so we want to continue to always be asking that question. And that may change even, month to month, year to year. I mean, it's going to change, but we want to do things that I think for us, it would be a failure if the community looks at the building as just belonging to the church and nobody else.
Right.
That's not what we want to communicate. We want the...
That was the interesting thing, that when you guys were first starting talking about that, I thought, man, that could be really good for the community. I know we've had a lot of discussions. Last week we had Josh Meyer with Parks and Rec, if I can say that. And we got in this conversation about how good sports is to keep kids occupied, and also teaching them life lessons, about working as a team, sacrificing for the team, accepting wins and losses, and trying to put effort in. I mean, there's a lot of coaching, teachable moments there, and just the mentorship of being present, which is what you are talking about. So, I mean, is there certain age groups? I mean, to some degree, I guess you got to wait to see who shows up, and then what do we do with this group?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think we want to be open, to all ages. I mean, we don't want it to just be used by kids. I mean, we want adults to use it. And like Kenny talked about, even with the Lincoln Gym back in the day, they're doing classroom, doing training, doing all kinds of different things, job training. So our heart is to do that. Now some of that may be limited as far as with just phase one, because some of that will come in, and with phase two, we'll have more classroom space and a commercial kitchen and things like that, so we could have some different types of meetings that you can't just have necessarily in a gym.
Right.
But yeah, our hope is 0 to 100 would be the age range, and obviously you're gonna narrow in and say, okay, let's try to hit this need. We feel like we can really meet this need.
I could see a lot of opportunities. I know we across the street we lost a job center that we used to have here.
Yes.
And I could see I'm not telling you what to do or anything. I know. This is what you need to do right here.
We're open to suggestions.
Yes. But I could see some assistance of people of how to filling out, finding job applications, and helping them, what's available, having a list of jobs that are available, and just helping coach people on stuff like that. I mean, everybody needs that. You know what I mean? So it's kind of hard for some people to actually find out what's out there. I mean, I haven't done that in a long time. I don't really know how to go about that either.
Right.
So
Right.
I could see that really being positive. So what the church itself, and the flock, if you will, so they're pretty supportive of that, or will they be helping? Because it sounds like potentially this could be pretty busy Are they going to be helping you guys do that? Or?
Yes, we have people who have a heart for job training, interview training, stuff like that, and they're
Right.
just really. We have people who have a heart for helping people get assistance, however they want to do it, have experience in it, and want
Right.
to help people do that. And so, yeah, they'll be a key part of that. But we also, as William was saying, we're a small congregation, and so we know that we can't do it all. And so we'll be partnering with different organizations and to help with those type of things.
Asking for volunteers and
Right.
stuff like that to help.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't even need to reinvent the wheel. Like
That's right.
we know Alan Wire does a Next Steps program
Right.
trying to help kids, and so they can partner with us,
That's a
so
good
we can partner
program.
with them.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't always have to be our name on it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We want to
Yeah.
do what's going to actually benefit people.
Yeah, that's right.
That's good. What's your thoughts about it?
I'm just sitting here thinking, the way that this all came together, you guys meeting, and this idea and, the grant, I think what I really take away from this is kind of what Kenny's talking about, just being present in the community, being there, being consistent, and then it's just going to progress and get better. You're
Right.
going to learn what the community needs are. You're going to be available, and it's just, there's really no telling where this is going to go. It's pretty exciting to see this happen, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
One of the thoughts I had the other day at Miss Rita's is, there were people coming in, they drove in the fire trucks, came down there, DPS was there. All these different people were coming to this event. And I'm like, how did Miss Rita get,
Yeah.
she's been doing it for 17 years.
That's
Yes.
hard to believe.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sure the first year was
She's great.
probably
Yeah.
maybe small, and probably all those people didn't gather in. And then
Yeah.
maybe the next 4 or 5 years she gathered in these groups, and then the next 4. And sometimes I think that's what we're trying to do is let's take a long view. Let's not think what can we just do in a year or what can we just do in 6 months, because sometimes it's hard to get momentum, or maybe you have an event and it doesn't go that well. It's like, well, you just need to have it for 5 years. You just need to have it. You just need to keep doing it, or maybe you just need to go. The city doesn't, or the community doesn't really need that event, and so let's do something different. But just, man, I think so. A couple of things. One, not being creative, being willing to let things go that don't work. That's always hard on churches, but trying to figure out how to do that. But then two, on the other side, just being there for the long haul and
Yes.
convincing that the community, we're not trying to pull a fast one on you. We're not trying to get money from you. We really are just trying to love you and trying to do what we think can help. And I think that's a real key.
Has there been any real challenge? I'm sure there's probably been several challenges, but something that really sticks out that's been difficult?
As far as the church, pastoring with Kenny is just so
Have you ever
hard.
thought, man, I'm not sure if we should do this, if
Right.
this is going to work or not, but
No, honestly, we've always laughed and joked because people always want to know that, right? What are the difficulties of
Yeah.
whether it's merging a church or whatever? And the Lord has really been kind to us.
Amen.
We there's a lot of we we merged in 2019 and then COVID hit. And a lot of churches struggled through. COVID was just for some reason became really controversial. And are you going to meet? And are you going to wear masks? And are you going to do this? And the Lord was just so kind to us and so gracious that we were able to kind of avoid a lot of that. And we were all making decisions and didn't really know what we were doing. And our people were really gracious to us and just saying, hey, whatever you guys think is best, we'll follow. And so that was. I don't think. That was not because I knew what I would, that was not because we brought some incredible wisdom to the table, because I did not. Kenny may claim that he did, but for the record, he did not either. So, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, I think, I do think, our values help.
Yeah.
Especially lead with grace.
Yeah.
Right? It's the idea that, like, we know people are going to offend us. We know
Right.
people are going to make mistakes. Or are they just going to be vindictive and actually do stuff to us? How do we respond to that?
Right.
And so we kind of hammered that one more than the other ones. And so I think that does change your mind frame. Like when people offend me, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
When people think differently than me, what are we going to do?
Right.
We're going to lead with grace. Like, we know it's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is how Jesus treated us. Like, he
Right.
didn't condemn us. The first time we messed up,
Yep.
we deserved it, but he led with grace. And so we're going to do the same with us, with everybody else too. And not only did we have COVID, we had Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery
For sure.
in 2020. And so you had a lot of opportunities for us to just be like, okay, well, this was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because, I mean, we were just,
I was thinking the same thing because that was my first year as chief. Like,
Yeah.
this is a bad idea.
it's a bad idea, right? I know you more than it, right? Like, this is not the time to do any of this
Right.
stuff,
What have
right?
I gotten
It's like-
myself into?
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, you know, if you have if you're willing just to lean into it, and I mean, we had discussions as a church about some really difficult stuff, and we probably prepared for more problems than what we actually had.
Right.
Because again, the Lord was really kind for us not experiencing a lot of the strife that was happening during that time. But I do think, even in our ignorance, we did lay some foundations that were key for that moment.
You know, I think one of the aspects from this perspective, I guess, people looking at it, when you get that there, are you going to be there? Are you genuine? Are you really going to do what you say you're going to do?
Right.
And so I think sometimes when you're starting something new like that, people sit back and wait, and they just want, because they're uncertain about your motivations. Are you really trying to help people, or are you just trying to help? You know, people are always kind of skeptical like that. So I think it does kind of make it a little slow starting. You know, when they see and they hear stories about, you know, and then they kind of build that up. But
Right.
I think just the service aspect was one of the things we talk about on the show, you know, about how people are doing good things in the community. I mean, this is a great deal, and I'm sure it's not without its challenges. And I know from our perspective, when we're trying to do that, showing up that next day, I mean, you have a hard day, and just showing up and trying to persevere, and where are you trying to get to? And it's hard work. I mean, when you're trying to do something for the community, you may have a lot of naysayers, you may have a lot of obstacles, and it is difficult, I think. And it's easy for people to say, I'm done with this, I'm going to give up, you know, so.
Yeah, I think, you know, one thing that we talked about a lot early on, especially maybe even during COVID, is because we asked the question. I was asking, why have we not faced more difficulty or pushback? And I think a lot of it was because I think our congregation understood what was at stake.
Yes.
We were a traditionally black church merged together with a traditionally white church. There were a million different reasons why that should fail.
Right.
And yet we're doing this because we want to put on display the power of the gospel. And what was interesting about kind of everything that was going on is the culture that was blowing. I mean, like black and white folks coming together culturally was blowing up. It was not happening, you know.
Right.
And so we wanted to be able to say this can happen this can happen through the power of the gospel. Jesus died for all of us, right?
Right.
Yes.
Jesus paid the price for all of us. And so if that's the case, and if Jesus welcomes all of us into if we repent and turn from our sins, and he welcomes us into his kingdom, and he doesn't care about what color we are or how much money we have or anything like that, then surely we can come together, you know, then surely,
Yeah.
but historically that's been extremely difficult, you know. And so, but I think when our congregation, when people realized that, they said, you know what, there's more at stake here than just my rights or my feelings or my preferences or whatever it is that might cause the division. There's more at stake here. And so I really am going to lead with grace, because I don't want to see this fail. I want the city of Sikeston to know that the gospel is powerful enough to bring a black church and a white church together.
Yes.
That matters. You know, that message matters. And so I think that helped us.
I have to say this. It seems like it's just highly unusual, because I know of churches that I've went to over time. If you try to bring in something new like that, there is you have one group that's probably all about it. Maybe you have another group that says, "What are we doing here?" A lot of conflict comes about like that, and churches sometimes, I think, can be inwardly focused instead of what you're trying to do here, and be outwardly focused, which, you know, your discipleship and just your mission, ministering to others, and not just the people that come there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so that's I think that's a positive thing, but it is kind of like, wow, y'all have really worked that out, and that says quite a bit for your church, I think. So,
Amen.
And it goes back to, I mean, what kind of God was doing for years. I think, you know, I can speak for, you know, with Trinity. I mean, we were doing church in the park down in the West End, you know, in I don't know when that would have been, 2010, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you know, basically going down to Roberta Row and having a church service on a Sunday night. You know, I remember this is funny. Well, it's not funny. But the first time I did that, I was down there. Nobody was there. I thought nobody's going to show up. I've created this event. Nobody's going to come. And one of the kids from the neighborhood came up, you know, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, my church is gonna, you know, we're gonna cook some hot dogs and we're gonna have a little church service down here and share the gospel." And he's like, "You know, somebody got shot here last week, right?" And I was like, "No, I did not know that. But thank you for telling me that," right? And so he kind of rides on, you know. I mean, it's a kid on a bike, right? He kind of rides on, and I'm like, "Lord, I do not know what I've gotten myself into, and I don't know what's going to happen." And I really thought, I was like, nobody's going to show up. And about 5 minutes later, like all these vehicles started coming in, and people started getting out, and we set up, and I mean, we had a great night. I mean, it was wonderful. You know, we handed out hot dogs and talked about Jesus and loved on people, and you know, I think just realizing, I mean, the difficulty. Well, again, so the Lord was working on merging my church then, but I had no idea what He was doing. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like I knew He was building a heart in our church for the neighborhood, but I didn't even know Kenny existed at that point, you know. And so I think the Lord I really do think the Lord was preparing us in ways even that we weren't aware of. And so that really helped when we got to the point of, okay, let's go before the church. And I mean, it really is crazy. I mean, the idea that you would go before a church and say, hey, we're going to merge, and we're not merging because we're closing. Like, it's either merge or close, because sometimes that happens. But like, no, everything's going fine. We just think this would be a fun way to, let's just try this. Let's see if this works, you know? And it's like, you're right. Normally people would be like, that is.
Well, I mean, in this case, you have two churches that agreed to do that.
Right.
So that's.
Right. Yeah. And I just think the Lord was working in our hearts, you know, to kind of, I know He was working in Kenny and Yolanda's heart and kind of how He was leading the church there. And, I can just point to different, different things that the Lord was kind of doing. Said, oh, He did this year, and then remember when He did this, and remember when this happened. And I think the Lord was preparing us to merge even then.
Isn't it kind of exciting knowing that the Lord has a plan for you that that you're not even aware of, but you know that plan is set in place?
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, it gives you hope when you don't know what's going on, or when situations get difficult. You can look back and say,
right,
He was working in that situation. He's doing something now.
That's right.
And so we can move forward in faith that it's going to work out.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes, John Piper says, the Lord's probably doing 10,000 things in your life right now, and you're aware of 3 of them. And I'm like, that's probably true.
It's probably right.
It's probably about right, you know?
It's kind of exciting, yeah.
It is.
So
is.
When did you guys meet?
2017.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? How did that come about?
Kenny was preaching at Fields of Faith. At the high school, and so we just took over our youth group and happened to be there, and you know, he gets up there, I'm like, hey, look at this brother, you know, he's preaching, and just did a great job that night, and really handled the text well, and presented the gospel so faithfully. And so I thought, I need to know this guy. Actually, like, as I'm walking back, you know, the football field we had to park along with. So we're like walking across the practice field, you know, if you know what I'm talking about there.
Yeah.
We're walking across the practice field, and I'm trying to find Kenny on Messenger, and I'm like, I need to have lunch with this guy. And he always tells that he saw the old guy. He's like,
an old white guy trying to meet with me.
Old white guy. Right. But thankfully,
I shouldn't laugh too hard at that. I editing some of these videos, I was like, man, you see yourself and you're like, geez.
Right.
I know. The camera does not. The camera doesn't lie. Yeah.
Like, who is that dude?
But he led with grace and was willing to have lunch with me, and that was the beginning of it.
Well, it sounds like, man, it's really coming along.
Yes.
I guess so. If people see this podcast and they're listening to this story, and I think this is something that Sikeston really needs. I really do. They may need a couple of these we need more programs like this for our youth. I mean, there's no doubt about that. The challenge of trying to keep, like you say, you got to keep them occupied. I mean, one of my daughters was in dance, and I complained all the time about how much that costs and everything else. But it really helped socially educate her, you know, and the responsibility and having that a program of some type, and the people who are positive influences around her. We really need that. So if people see this and they want to help, what can they do?
They can go to gcc.sikeston.org, and that's an opportunity to give there, but it's also an opportunity to just contact us if they want to meet with us and talk about how they can help, and we will be happy to do that as well.
Right.
That's GCC.
Sikeston.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so are y'all planning fundraisers? Do y'all have anything coming up or anything like that?
We don't have anything scheduled, but again, we're still kind of in that thinking through stuff phase, working with people to try to figure out what's the best way to go about this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you have something like that, would that be on you have Facebook page or Grace Bible Fellowship or?
Yeah, the
Grace Community Center has a Facebook page as well.
Just the Grace Community Center.
Yes.
Okay.
And so you can go there and
that's
learn.
GCC. I just
GCC.
put that together.
Right, Grace
There you go.
Community
I used
Center.
to be a
Right.
detective.
We weren't just making things up. That's right.
I wanted to say I didn't want to sound dumb. Like, what does that stand
What does
for?
GCC stand for?
GCC.
I'm sitting there like processing it. Like,
Grace Community
yes.
Center.
there it is. Okay.
Yes.
I should have just asked.
Yes.
Yeah, if you search for that on Grace Community Center in Sikeston, you know, you'll find us.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that's another way to contact us, and you know, you can message us.
GCC at Sikeston.org.
Yes.
No, you said it wrong, but it's GCC Sikeston.
Oh, it's all one word.
Yes, GCC Sikeston. Yeah, but if somebody was on Facebook, I think you can just. Kenny can correct me here because on my Facebook, I'm pretty bad at Facebook, but you can just search for Grace Community Center in Sikeston. So
Okay.
there
It'll pull
are,
up, yeah.
there are other Grace Community Centers, so if you don't include Sikeston, then you might get
I got you.
one in another city or something. But
Well, that sounds really good. Do you have anything you want to add?
Just, I'm super excited about this, and you know,
great.
I think Sikeston we always seem to get a lot of negative publicity, you know.
Sure.
Yes.
But I think, and one of the things I'm excited about this podcast too is just highlighting there's so many great things in our community, and there's so many people willing to serve and make this community better. It's something to be really proud of, and you know, I'm super happy about this, and it's going to be a good deal.
Well, I am glad we got men like you in the community that are trying to look out for the community. I mean, we need more of that, honestly. I really appreciate you guys' effort. It means more than we know. You know what I mean? And you know, when you don't have that, bad stuff comes about, you know, and bad stuff will still come about when you do have it, but you hope to mitigate that. And even if it's just one child or 4 children that you can get on a path where they're going to be better, that's great.
Amen.
It's, you know, so
Yeah, there's a quote that I really like, and I'll probably mess it up, but it goes something like, "Honorable men will never sit under the shade of the trees they plant." And what our community, what we do now, can have such a great impact generations from now.
Yeah,
and
right.
so the work that you guys do now and people in the community do now, it's down the road. It's going to be phenomenal.
Well, you think about this because you were reflecting on how it was when you were a kid. Some kid will probably go to this community center and then later think, man, we need a community center like I had when I was a kid.
Right.
You know, so,
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, that
And that's our
impact
hope.
is never ending. You know,
Yeah.
you can
Right.
really multiply that if you really, you know, invest in the lives of these kids. And so and that's the hope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kenny's getting older, so I mean, he's probably going to retire in the next year or two.
Man, I'm
and
just
so
trying to
we're
find my replacement all the time.
That's right. That's right. No, but I mean, seriously, like there is this yard. I mean, you're trying to find who is going to be the Kenny King in the next generation. That's going
Right.
that's going to come up and say, hey, I really benefited at the community center, and I want to serve, and I want to make sure that this stays open. I want to make sure
Yeah.
that this continues to serve, and so there is a real need for just continuing to do that.
All right. Well, if we don't have anything else, I think we're going to call it for episode 8 this is episode 8. So
You said 7 in the beginning.
I did say 7, didn't I?
7, 8.
No, this is
somewhere
8.
in there.
I messed that up.
7.5.
No,
Right.
7 came out this week, yeah, which was probably today. But anyway.
Well, thanks, Jim, for having us.
Yeah.
Hey,
thanks for
I
having
appreciate
us.
you guys coming. I mean, that's really what we want to do is bring people in and just hear the good news that's happening and what's spreading around Sikeston, the good stuff that people are doing. Because we're just trying to highlight that. I mean, there's a lot of negativity out there that you hear a lot about, and we're trying to push back against that, a little bit. So
I think bad news makes headlines.
That's
sells-
true.
Yeah,
well, they
absolutely.
don't have newspapers anymore, but bad news
Yeah.
sells newspapers, it seems like.
Right,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Well, episode 8. That's what we're on. All right.
right.
So,
Thanks.
well, hey, guys, thanks for following us and watching this podcast. We appreciate that. We want to thank Kenny and William for coming up here and talking about the Grace Community Center and here in Sikeston. So just if you want to email us at chief.cap.chap@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time. But first,
Take the high road.
you got to take the high road.
Amen. Like it.
All right.